I really did not want your typical dental office. I needed to have a partner who understood that. When I told you and Josh about just like the branding, like I wanted it to be an elevated dental experience, like Tiffany and Co., which is where the name Smile and Co. came from. So I wanted it to equal that kind of quality, but I also didn't want it to feel bougie. And you guys took that idea and you nailed it.
Hey guys, welcome to the fourth episode of the Story Project podcast. I am so thrilled to just have this opportunity to bring these amazing stories to you every month. It's been a ton of fun. I'm exceptionally excited to introduce my guest of the fourth episode today, Dr. Ashley Joves.
Hi, I am so honored to be here today with you. It's so nice to see your face, Joanna. I've missed you.
I've missed you as well. Just so you all know, Dr. Ashley is one of my favorite docs and also has just become like a personal friend, I would say. So I want to dive in first to how we met you, Ashley, and you can correct me if I don't get all the details right. But from what I remember, prior to you opening the doors of Smile & Co., which is your startup practice, you reached out to Josh, my husband, and talked to him about what it would look like if we handled your marketing, branding, website, all of that. And was that back in 2017?
It was.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
We're going back a few years.
Way back. So I had just started recording with Michael Arias, and we had documented my startup process week by week. And when it came down to choosing someone to help with my website, I initially told him, like, no, I'm saving money. I'm just going to build it myself. And he said, are you sure? Because I know this um, awesome company. They're based out of Ohio, and I think you should take a look at their portfolio. And he said, okay, well, their name is Studio 88. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of them, but I am so intrigued because I am from Ohio. And we instantly had that connection. And as soon as I typed in your website, Joanna, I just said, oh my gosh, I love their branding. I love their style. Like, it did not feel like your typical dental marketing agency. And I had my initial phone call with Josh, and he said, yeah, like we do all custom videography and photography, and I typically will fly out my crew and we'll document blah blah blah. And I said, like, I really don't want to inconvenience you. I'm in California, you're in Ohio. That is a lot of work, and I'm just a startup, so like it's okay. I'm going to put everything on hold for now. And I went back to my initial idea of DIYing my website, and I had spent countless hours on YouTube trying to, oh gosh, trying to master WordPress, and it was just not working. And I remember telling Michael, I was like, Michael, like, I really thought that I could do this and I'm struggling. And he's like, well, why don't you just hire Studio 88? And so I got back on the phone with Josh, and thank goodness he was still open-minded about coming and doing my website. And that's my first interaction with Studio 88. And oh my gosh, the rest is history. It's been just an amazing ride with you guys, and getting to know you every year has just been such a gift.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot how influential Michael was in connecting us. So thank you, Michael Arias. You are an amazing human and we love you. Well, Ashley, I mean, it has been an honor to work with you to capture your story, bring your brand to life. I mean, you're kind of like one of our OG people. So your website is not only one of our team favorites, but it's also one of our most popular websites that we've ever done. And so it's been a blast. And then you and I kind of just started interacting on Instagram, and we just have like, I don't know, similar mindsets, and we like to have fun. And that's kind of how we got to know each other. And then at some of the conferences we've been together, which has been so fun.
Mhm.
And I can't wait for the next one where we get to be in person again. I mean, that's
Yeah.
happen sometime soon.
Oh, it can't come soon enough. I swear. Like, if if it doesn't happen by this year, I am going to be devastated.
Well, either we'll come visit you and just do a fun Napa trip,
Okay,
or yeah,
I'm there.
maybe we should just do that instead of like trying to go work together at a conference. We should just instead of a
I
ski event, why don't we go drink wine?
I could not agree with you more. Like, let's just put a date on the calendar. Let's just make this happen, regardless of a conference.
Yes. Okay, that sounds good. Well, I always like before we get into your story and kind of your background, where did you grow up and where do you live now?
So I was born in Ohio, just outside of Columbus, and I moved to California when I was 4 years old. And so I grew up in the Bay Area, but I currently reside in Folsom, which is just a suburb outside of Sacramento.
Okay. And we'll definitely get more into more detail with about Smile and Co and all of that. But I always like to just run through a few fun questions just as like icebreakers before we get into
Yeah, yeah.
the real in-depth stuff. So what is your favorite self-care indulgence? What do you do? What's your favorite thing that Ashley Hovez does to take care of herself?
Well, at nighttime, after the boys go to bed, I take a really long, unnecessarily long hot shower, which I feel like is so soothing at the end of a long day. And then I have a whole nighttime skincare routine where I just like I look like I am Vaselined up. Like it's pretty funny because Brian looks at me, he's like, "Do you have enough moisturizer on your face?" Like it's just so nice taking the 20 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. I don't know. I get lost in the routine of thinking about the day, thinking about what went right, what I'm grateful for, and then just going to bed knowing that I pampered myself.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have like a steamer in your shower? We had one of those put into our newer home, and it
Yeah.
been a game changer for me.
No, I don't have a steamer, but I'm trying to convince my husband Brian to buy us an infrared sauna.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's on my list
Oh,
too.
is it really?
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait.
Smile and Co is a very recognizable brand. I mean, you have done such a killer job. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, from every aspect of it. And you've received a ton of attention, because of your story and also your branding. Since we're all about creating a brand that's unique to you at Studio 88, in your words, why was that specifically so important to you?
Well, oh, thank you so much, Joanna. Like I really did not want your typical dental office. I love to have fun, and every office that I ever worked in, it was so stuffy, and because I'm a young female, well, not so young anymore,
You're
uh,
so
be- because I was always the quote unquote the younger doc, like I had to behave a certain way. I had to wear a white coat. I had to refer to myself as Dr. Hovez, which is so against every fiber of my being. Like when I introduce myself to my patients, I always say, "Hey, thanks for coming. I'm Ashley. Like, how did you find us?" And I want to play like maybe because it's my dance background, but it's always hip hop Thursdays, hip hop Fridays, hip hop. Every day is like an old school hip hop day in my practice. And I wanted that kind of culture. And I needed to have a partner who understood that. And you guys, like when I told you and Josh about just like the branding, like I wanted it to be an elevated dental experience. Like Tiffany and Co., which is where the name Smile and Co. came from. So I wanted it to equal that kind of quality, but I also didn't want it to feel bougie. So you were getting like the best of both worlds. And you guys took that idea and you nailed it. Like as soon as you showed me like the sneak peek of my website, I think I cried. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. Like you had it nailed down to a T. And I think if you are trying to create your brand and your marketing agency doesn't understand that, like, in fact, you guys, you have a whole brand packet that you mail to your
Mhm.
clients, and it is a very extensive like questionnaire, like you're circling words that you want to be that you want your brand to feel like, which I think is very unique. And yeah, it I didn't want a typical dental office, and I knew that I couldn't go with your typical dental website.
Yeah. Before I ask you the next question, I have to read this quote by an unknown author. So apparently we don't know who said this, but I feel like you'll like this. A strong woman looks a challenge dead in the eye and gives it a wink. So not only did you open the doors to Smile and Co in 2018, right?
2017.
2017. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
you also, if I remember correctly, got pregnant with your third baby at the same time. Okay, so let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Actually, were you and Brian planning on having a third?
Oh.
I want to hear about this season of your life where you're growing your family and also starting a practice at the same time.
So we call Cody our surprise baby. No, Cody was definitely not planned. In fact, I had thought I had the stomach flu. So my older two boys, they were in preschool and daycare, and they both came down with a stomach virus. And sure enough, I started throwing up. I started feeling very nauseous. And I told Brian, I said, well, gosh, these boys got me sick. Joanna, this was 6 or 7 weeks after we opened our doors, like 6 or 7 weeks after. And I was like, oh my gosh, what an awful time to be sick with the flu. And and then I have a friend, a very close friend who is an OBGYN. And I told her, I was like, hey, so I'm just not feeling well, but I'm not pregnant, obviously. And I think I got whatever Hudson and Brady gave to me. But then I told her, I said, but I also don't remember the last time I had my period. And sorry if this is TMI. If you don't know me by now, I am all about TMI.
So am
Um, That's why we get along so well. I told her, I said, well, I don't remember when I had it, but I do remember that when I did have it, it was for one day only.
I.
And she's like, oh, Ashley, you need to buy a test like yesterday. And I remember sending Brian. Oh, wait, I will also say, so women have a very superpower, like um, we can taste and smell things. Like it's eerie how well our sense of smell and taste like heighten when we're pregnant.
Mhm.
I remember Brian had given me my favorite glass of Charbonneau. Like I remember like we had just like celebrated basically the opening of my practice, and he poured my favorite glass, and I almost spit it out. I was like,
Mm.
this is rancid. And he's like, oh dear God, like, because this has happened twice before. And so he went and he got the test, and as soon as I peed on the stick, it was a very big positive. Like there was like no waiting 2 minutes.
Oh,
It
that's
was
when you really know you're pregnant.
that's when you really know you're pregnant. And I kid you not, when I saw that positive, I actually cried. and not tears of joy. Like I had this overwhelming sense of fear
Mhm.
and like, how could this happen at this time in my life? So, just to backtrack, I had followed my husband around while he was pursuing his professional career, his degree. And I had taken odds and end jobs as associates here and there, and always in practices that I wasn't necessarily in love with. And it was during our 1 year in Los Angeles where Brian was finishing up his fellowship at UCLA, and I had taken a year off. I had just had, um, I had just had Brady, and we were like, yeah, he he was 3 months old when we moved to LA. So I had taken a year off. And it was during that year that I said, you know what? When we finally decide where we're going to end up, I'm going to focus on my career. I was going to put me first, like finally me, not just being a stay-at-home mom, not just the wife that like followed her husband around. Like this was my turn.
Mhm.
And that's when Smile and Co started. Like that's when like the planning, the preparation, all of this anxiety of what is going to happen now with my startup. This was my baby. The startup was my baby. And I think it took me a year, no, sorry, not a year, a good month of me finally coming to grips with like, hey, you had a plan, but God has a bigger plan for you.
Mhm.
And just that idea of letting go and knowing that everything was going to be okay. And that was when I fully embraced the idea of bringing another child in this very, like stressful time with my office. And like it was never my intention to take maternity leave during my first year of practice, to finding an associate during like 6 months in. Like, who does that? So long, I took a very long roundabout way of saying, no, Cody was not planned, but he's been the biggest blessing to our family. And anytime you think you have a road that you're going to take, and you're set on your path, you will be surprised at all of the different turns and unexpected twists that will come,
Mhm.
and how you end up exactly where you needed to be.
Mhm. I think those pivots that we end up having to take, or like you said, the turns in the roads, I think they make the journey more beautiful. I
Mhm.
mean, Cody is just an adorable, adorable little boy. I mean, like his smile
Oh,
for me rates. He's way up here. I'm a huge fan.
thank you.
He is awesome. Um, well, most dentists on the whole are, and I think you mentioned this earlier, but fall into the category of high performing, high achieving humans, right? I mean, and especially female dentists. And I mean, gosh, you're not only, you know, running a practice and, hiring, training, and, being an awesome business owner, but you are trying to have an awesome, amazing, thriving little family while raising little people. Um, I'd love to talk for a minute about the myth of doing it all. And have you by chance read any of Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In? Yes. Okay. Well, she has an amazing chapter in her book where she talks about the perils of trying to do it all perfectly. And I love this because I feel like it's going to complement our conversation just the entire time we've been talking. And I want to quote her because she says this so specifically and it says it so well. Trying to do it all and expecting it all can be done exactly right is a recipe for disappointment. Perfection is the enemy. Gloria Steinem said it best: you can't do it all. No one can have two full-time jobs, have perfect children, and cook 3 meals and be multi-orgasmic till dawn.
That would be amazing.
Oh, She ends with saying, Superwoman is the adversary of the women's movement. That last line kind of gave me goosebumps and I connected with it very much. Do you identify with the pressure of feeling like A, you have to do it all, and B, you have to do it all perfectly? Does Ashley Joves try to be a superwoman?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. Well, to go back to if I read Lean In, that was actually on my audiobook on repeat. So I was an associate and I had to commute 40 minutes each way. And this was right before I opened my practice. And it was during that time of listening to Sheryl Sandberg on my drives that it made my decision to do a startup that much easier, because she has this one quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but she basically says in her first chapter that had me in tears. She said, "What would you do if you know you couldn't fail?"
Mm.
And that, it just resonated with me so much. So, and I love the idea that women are very vocal about the fact that we can't do it all. That whether we're a stay at home mom or whether we are in our businesses, we cannot be all things to all people at all times. And I think the biggest part of my decision to start seeing a therapist was I was still very much stuck in that rut of trying to be all things. And it is impossible. It is a myth. I was spending so much time in my office. In fact, I have so much guilt about my decision to come back to practice after I had given birth to Cody. Like I remember sitting at home nursing him, worried about my practice. And if you have ever breastfed a baby and you have anxiety and you're stressed out, you know that that is going to affect your ability to provide for your baby. And at the same time, when I was back in the office and seeing patients, my entire mindset was, I am a horrible mom. I have this newborn at home and it sucks. Like it really sucks. Like you never feel like you're good enough. Like you you just can't do it all. And releasing that pressure from us is still a day-to-day struggle. And I know now that I can't do it alone. Like I really can't. I don't do it alone. And just having that grace for myself, knowing that I can't do it all, has been huge. Like I have the best team in the office. My team now takes care of the day-to-day minutia that they don't even bother me with anymore, which I think has been such a load off my plate. And similarly, we had a full-time nanny to help with the boys, but now Brian's parents are the main caregivers for when Brian and I are both at work. And at nighttime, my mom also helps with the boys. And any woman who thinks that they are still a superwoman and can be all things to all people is going to burn out. And I don't want that for anybody. It really is an unnecessary stress that we need to stop putting on ourselves.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from? Because it is everywhere. And I know we all at certain times in our, our lives have experienced this pressure to be superwoman, to be all things to everyone, have the perfect home, run an awesome business, be thriving in all ways. Is it society's expectations, voices in our life, like people in our circle? Is it a personal inner struggle, comparison? Where do you think it's coming from?
I think it's multifactorial. I think that again, I'm going to defer to social media, and comparison is a thief of joy.
Mhm.
When you're looking at Instagram worthy photos of these extravagant birthday parties for their kids, and you barely have like a cake and balloons for your son, like, of course there's that level of, oh my gosh, I my party sucks compared to this kid's party. And similarly, when we're listening to podcasts about how these doctors are producing astronomical numbers, and they're doing it on 2 work days and 40% profitability, like, yeah, that's mentally, that it's just draining. Like, we're always in this rut of, when is enough going to be good enough? And I think most of us, and it's that same drive that obviously fuels our success. It's why we have achieved so much in our lives, but that same drive is also our own detriment, because we know what is possible, and we don't know the sacrifices that are happening on the other end, because those unfortunately are the stories that aren't being shared in all of those platforms.
Yeah, completely. Let's talk about the aspect of perfectionism with the whole Superwoman myth. Since dentists are perfectionists by trade, does the demand or expectation for perfection cross over into all things on the home front, even in your personal life?
uh, I think it would be unrealistic to think that you can just shut it off, that aspect of you. I think it's built into our DNA. um, I I think that most people don't talk about how hard it is to raise kids while running a business. And I I would be a liar to say that, like, my marriage is perfect all the time, like that we don't fight. And I would be a liar to say that my kids are perfect angels that eat their vegetables, and that dinner is always made, and I have always healthy organic food on the table. Like, it's a load of crock. Like, we, at the end of the day, are so tired, and we're struggling to get all our 3 boys fed and showered and brushed their teeth and ready for bed. And to tell you that it's always perfect is, it would be a flat out lie. Like, it's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard. And I know that on days that are more stressful in the practice, my patience at home with the kids is even shorter. Like, I I can't control, what my, like, Hudson, I love him to pieces. He's my precocious child, but he is also the child that will push our buttons to no end. And we butt heads, and I raise my voice when I don't want to raise my voice. And it's far from perfect. It really is. And I want everyone to know that. Like, some days, like, you just go to bed and you're exhausted and you're tired and you just want the day to end. Um so it the perfectionism on every level in our businesses and in our personal lives is just an impossible goal. It really is.
Yeah. And Sheryl Sandberg, she also shared the truth to, support what you're saying. Aiming for perfection causes frustration at best and paralysis at worst. She quoted Nora Ephron, who was giving a commencement speech to a group of women struggling having a career and family. And she said, "It will be a little messy, but embrace the mess. It will be complicated, but rejoice in the complications. It will not be anything like you think it will be like, but surprises are good for you. And don't be frightened. You can always change your mind. I've had 4 careers and 3 husbands. I mean, I love this sentiment. I Except the part where she had 3 husbands. I think one marriage is enough work for me. I couldn't imagine going through. Oh my god.
Oh man, I love that so much. And I love the fact that women who have achieved so much are talking about how it's okay to pivot and it's okay to have failures and you move on. Like it's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so how do you let's talk about some practical things, because I think that pro tips are always really, they're the tangible things. They're the things that people hear and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. I could do that, you know? And so I would love to just get into a few resources just between you and I, casually, that we do that, and we'll start with you, but things that you put into place that help you keep your head above water. I know you had mentioned um, Brian's parents are coming in and helping with the kids while you guys are at work. Is there anything else that, pro tips for, you know, not, I don't know, working through the stress and kind of staying, how do you keep your sanity?
So I would say that one of the big things that I am such a proponent of is hiring people who will do the tasks that you do not want to do.
Mhm.
Honestly, like before I was of the mindset like, hey, I that's a luxury. Like what do I deserve? Why do I deserve to spend money on that? Like that's a luxury. And meaning I love a clean house and Brian loves a clean house. And during the pandemic, we actually ended up not having someone clean our home because of COVID. And I will tell you, we were both on edge. Like we come home, or we were home, but especially being at home, that was awful. Being at home with boys 7 and under, 3 of them is a disaster. And Brian and I, like he still worked the entire time. He would come home, he would take a look around, and he would just flip out. And I would say, I dealt with your kids all day. I am not going to be cleaning toilets. I'm sorry. So now that the world is quote unquote coming back to some semblance of normalcy, the first thing that we did was we hired a housekeeper to clean on a weekly basis. And yes, that may seem bougie to some, but I can't tell you how nice it is come Thursday when we come home from work and the house smells and looks amazing. And as soon as the kids come home, it's like a different story. But for like those 20 minutes, it's just nice. You feel like you can like breathe. So that would be my one thing. Like if you don't want to clean toilets on your days off, freaking hire someone. Like I feel like at this stage in our lives, we deserve to be pampered. And that's another thing. Like if you think that you can't like buy a Peloton because you don't want to invest in having a multi-thousand-dollar bike and paying the monthly. But if it means that you have peace of mind and you can be centered and grounded to tackle on the day, like what's the ROI on that? And currently, I have been thinking about a personal assistant because I hate. So I am awful at details and like integrating stuff. And I want to hire some. I know this sounds awful. I want to hire someone to organize my life, to tell me where I need to go, to call and schedule the doctor's appointments, keep me accountable, and also mental health, like we keep referring back to this, but I used to think that spending X amount of money on me every week was almost like a waste. Like I could be buying another outfit or, a handbag when you think about how much that adds up quickly. But having that dedicated hour each week where I can come and really just put it all out there, put it in an environment where that other person receiving this information has no bias against what I'm telling her, has no connection to anyone in my life, and who can just be that sounding board for me to express like my thoughts has been huge. So I guess my tactical tip is think about not the money that you're spending, but the ROI on those things that you're spending the money on.
That's so incredible. You're really saying spend time on things that you value. So when you come home from work, if you would prefer, um, this would be me. I prefer to come home and I want to play with my kids. I actually do not love standing in the kitchen for 2 hours baking an organic, gluten-free, dairy-free meal and then cleaning it up after. I feel like dinner takes 15 whole minutes, even when I drag it out with my preteen teenage kids and ask
Yeah.
a million questions. It's still only 15 minutes, right, of quality time together or whatever. But I would rather come home and either DoorDash something, we still get to sit at the table together, or maybe do meal prep and it's super easy and throw it in the oven. I'd rather play with my kids, hang out with them, go for a walk or go for a bike ride. So I think it's about spending time on the things that you value instead
Yes.
of us burning ourselves out trying to do everything.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And the next step would be how much does a personal chef cost?
Oh my gosh. You and me both.
Could you imagine?
Oh,
Oh, gosh. Now you have my like wheels churn.
that would be a game changer for both you and
That would be a game changer. Yes.
you guys and us. We're all like foodies. So that would be amazing. I think we both need to look into that.
Oh, okay. So when you come to Napa,
Yeah.
let's eat at the French Laundry.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely.
I mean, obviously, it will be a business expense.
Yes,
We're going to talk
obviously.
about
Right. Okay, I commit to that right now. Well, a few things that I kind of came up with, and you covered, quite a few of them, and just a few additional pro tips. First, obviously, is to have that mindset. We cannot do it all. I think that that's foundational, and it needs to begin there. Secondly, identify your priorities at work and home. Um, Prioritizing how you spend your time, like exactly what you said, is going to help us on the whole feel better and more productive. I know that I'm a huge fan of any type of project management software you can find that suits you. I know Josh uses like the Things app. He's used that for years religiously. I like Trello, for teams and stuff, Basecamp and all that, but that's more business. A way for you to keep track of your weekly and daily priorities and really find a rhythm with them is going to just help you feel more successful on the home front. Um, and then again, we covered this asking for help or hiring support. And I know that a lot of times I hear when I mention this, well, we don't have the money or budget for that. The interesting thing about budget and all of our budgets is we can always you know uh, we can move things around. You can save money in some places and spend it more in other. You can reallocate funds so that you can possibly afford to hire a nanny or whatever. But we have somebody, or somebody to clean your home. We have somebody come in. My friend Sadie comes and cleans every 2 weeks, and she is a godsend. She's been with us for years, and I'm never looking back. And like you said, you just walk in, and it's like a burden has lifted.
Yes. It's so nice.
Yes. And I think lastly, communicating with your partner or spouse, like getting on the same page weekly. I know that Josh and I, we are pretty good about this. We do have weekly meetings and we cover, I think we could be better at this as I was like kind of writing all this down for this interview. But I think asking even your spouse or partner, hey, how can I support you this week? And vice versa. Like if one of you, if Brian's at the office late, is there a way or someone, can his mom come over and support you that night with the kids when you get off work? You know what I mean? And kind of just tag teaming some of that can just help create, just feel like more, your home will feel more peace,
I love that.
peaceful dynamic instead of, I think sometimes, especially type A high achieving, you're just constantly like head down, go, 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 and achieve and get as much done as possible. So I think teaching myself to stop and pause at the front of the week and really map out what it looks like, and then communicating with my partner has helped me go, oh, I need to enlist my friend Peyton to come and grab my kids here, because otherwise that's going to really stress me out and I'm going to be rushing down the freeway and I don't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? So I've had to just it's almost like reverse engineering your week.
Yes, no, absolutely. And speaking of partners, I absolutely love you and Josh. You are such a power couple, and just oh, I am like enamored by how in love you guys are. And I'm kind of taking the mic from you. I'm gonna ask you a question. Like, how how are you keeping that level of attraction and just that that passion between you guys thriving all these years?
That's interesting. I just recently uh, wrote an article, literally just finished it yesterday for, Do with Ann Duffy, the dental
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Yeah. So it's all about what you just asked me.
Oh my gosh, perfect timing.
Yeah. Um, Listen, one of the reasons I wrote it was, and I'll skip ahead, but I think that one, Josh and I, if we're going to be like really honest, Ashley, which I feel like I can be with you, we are not always in love. We don't always think each other are, you know what I mean? Thebomb.com. I mean, we fall in and out of love and we go through hard seasons and we have our highlights and our lowlights just like every other couple. And that is something I definitely put in the article, very more transparently than I think I ever have before, because I think it's also important to have open conversations about the dynamics of our relationships. And like, you've pointed out on social, you can look at maybe our social feed and think that it's always like, 5 stars and we get along so well and everything. Man, he and I probably out of out of anybody can butt heads. We're both so stubborn. We both think that we know the right way, right?
Yeah.
And while we have shared values and many similar perspectives, we also have our differing perspectives. And to answer your question specifically, we recently went away, and that has been something that we've really stuck with and committed to for 25 years. And even when we were younger and really couldn't afford a nice trip or anything, we would just get in a car and just get out, go away for the weekend and stay somewhere super simple that was not, bougie and like, it wasn't the Ritz, right? I mean, we got married when we were 20 and broke. So now, I mean, yeah, we went to Cabo, just us. And it was just like, you could feel the stress melt off of both of us. We had no children, no responsibilities, and we just connected in the entire 3-4 days. We did not talk about the business. We did
Oh,
not talk about anything work related or even anything in our relationship, like, oh, I want to improve this or whatever. We just hung out as friends.
mm,
So
I,
while we don't have it all figured out, and I humbly say that because I know the work that we still need to do to get to where, you know, we feel like, hey, we're like, this is an exceptional, freaking awesome relationship, right? I I have to say, I think friendship has been the key for Josh and I.
Mhm.
And whatever we can do to maintain and just grow our friendship and come together as best friends, which is how it all started for us. That's gold for us.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up Cabo because that's actually what I was referring to. It's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it's been on my bucket list. Like I always tell Brian, like Brian works so much and I work a lot. And it's always been a goal of mine to have a husband wife vacation, even if it's a long weekend somewhere. And we just cannot seem to get away from it all, especially with the kiddos. And one thing that we have lost because we don't have a nanny anymore is our ability to do a weekly date night. And I actually miss that so much. I think that was so important for us. Do you and Josh engage in a weekly date night?
We do love our date nights. I would say it's probably not once a week. And some of that is dependent on like if he's traveling, it's we all kind of want to be together on the weekend and not like leave the kids, you know what I mean, again or something like that. So I would say at least twice a month we do dates. And that has been a pretty comfortable, kind of realistic balance for us. And I think that it those can be like tiny little mini trips, you know? I mean, you get away, good food, good wine, whatever your thing is, and just hang out with your partner and maybe I don't know, I think for us like we him and I could talk about business like all day long and talk about work and talk about HR and talk about right everything going on. And so we just have to usually before the date, beginning of the date, we'll just check in and go, hey, what do we want to talk about tonight? Do we want to talk about work or do we want to just like hang out and be super chill? So yeah,
I
but those
love
are a couple things. Oh, well, okay. Lastly, what encouragement can you pass on to all the lady dentists that are listening and even the guy ones, but who are watching this episode, raising families, growing their practice and feeling the pressure of doing it all perfectly? What would like last words, what would you want to say to them?
I would say stop comparing yourself to others, as hard as it may be. Whatever you're dealing with, someone else is dealing with it too. They just may not be vocal about it. So know that your problems are not yours alone. And also just embrace every season of life that you're in, whether it's growing your practice from the very beginning. Like I think that's something that I didn't do enough, and I still find I'm still guilty of not really sitting down and just reflecting on where I'm at, like where my office is at. And just in the short amount of time, we've grown so fast. And I was always just so focused on the next goalpost that I never even stopped and celebrated. And I think that we need to celebrate more. We need to celebrate like if we got 30 patients that month, but our goal was 50, freaking celebrate that you got 30 patients that month. Yeah, have those mini victories. Like we don't give ourselves enough grace or enough enough self-love. And I think that we just need more of it. And yeah, like, so embrace the ride, celebrate where you're at, and know that no matter what you're comparing yourself to or who you're comparing yourself to, someone else would kill to be in your shoes.
Mm. Oh man, mic drop on that. Wow. Okay, that was really good, Ashley.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Ashley Joves, I cannot thank you enough for just taking the time to share your heart, your story. You are just kind of one of my favorite humans. So I will forever be one of your fans. And if people want to follow you and stay in touch, what's the best place on social for them to do that?
So I am on Instagram at Ashley Joves DDS. You can follow our office at Smile and Company. I have a podcast, a weekly podcast with George Hariri, talking about all things mental health, actually, on Dental Friends with Benefits. And I also have a podcast with Michael Arias at The Making of. We just recorded yesterday for the first time in forever. And we have a Facebook group. We have two Facebook groups, The Making of a Dental Startup and The Making of a Dental Startup for Docs only. So connect. I'd love to hear from you. And Joanna, it's been truly a pleasure. Every time I see you, you just make my heart so happy. And I hope to spend time with you and Josh in person. And thank you to you and Josh and the amazing team at Studio 88. I can't think of a better team to partner with to get Smiling Co's brand out there. So I appreciate all that you do for the dental industry, for all that you've done for me and my office. You guys are amazing human beings, and our world is brighter because of you. So thank you.
Gosh, oh, love you. To
I
the
love
to the moon and back.
you.
Oh, huge thank you to our Story Project podcast audience for listening today. And again, to Dr. Ashley Joves for hanging out with us. That's a wrap, guys. We will see you next time.